So, if you recall, maybe first or second episode, I mentioned that I would not dive or delve into politics, that I would not get political, so to speak. And I still plan on sticking by that. But why would I say that if if many of the conversations that I have outside of the podcast are of political in nature, right? So let's in order for me to explain this a little bit, I want to go off of a definition. The definition, what is politics in general, right? And this is just I don't even know from what dictionary, Webster's, something like that, right? So by definition, politics is the activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. And the main reason why I don't typically want to discuss politics on this podcast is one, because it's not a political podcast, right? And listen, right now we're at a stage where we're being beat over the head with everybody's political ideology, one way or the other. And I'll let you know, initially, I am pretty much smack dab in the middle when it comes to American politics, right? And I explain all this stuff again because I see the political spectrum as largely an amoral arena, right? Where the discussion isn't necessarily centered around morality. Is really one side versus the other, and one side's trying to hold on to power. And in this instance, the power is the ability to tell people what to do. Right? Like, and you know, and you can argue that there were some good people in power and there were some terrible individuals in power. I'm not really up for that debate in and of itself, because at the end of the day, they all have to do things that can be seen as morally just or morally corrupt. That's kind of the nature of the game there, right? So that's why I say that it's largely an amoral spectrum, right? It's an amoral arena there. But another reason why I don't dig into this stuff is because, or I don't dig into it on the podcast, but I would definitely explore that in conversations I have with others, is that, like, no matter what, I always will kind of go back to what God says and what God said. And most of my arguments from a political spectrum kind of fall down to that. So I have a little bit of an issue where I'm saying, like, hey, politics is amoral, so I'm trying to take this amoral thing and apply morality to it. It gets to be a little difficult. And that's not at all the point of the podcast in and of itself. And really, this random topic really just came from a question that surprisingly, a number of people have asked me, how come you don't talk about any of your political ideologies on the podcast? And it's just, again, the whole idea for this podcast is to, one, introduce you to the Scout method, but to help you build up your health in all arenas, in your entire being. You know, your physicality, your mentality, your emotionality, and your spirituality. We want to cover all four of those. And honestly, talking about politics isn't really gonna do it for you. That doesn't help in building any of those things up. But what I will do is I'll take real life situations, things that go on, and especially in these random topics, and we just talk about these things because, again, we're searching for the truth, right? And what I found was that the political spectrum, the political arena, is not that full of truth. And the thing is, It is all about power, one side versus the other, right? You shouldn't get to a point where you think that one side is better than the other because of this, that, and the third. They just line up with what you believe a little bit more, right? And it's interesting because people would often kind of challenge me on my thinking a little bit, and I welcome that. But they challenge me on my thinking when it comes to, well, whether politics is an amoral arena, right? Because it's just like, the country was founded on Christian beliefs. Were they though, or were they founded on theist beliefs, which is a little bit different, right? So, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be people all over the place who are going to be like, well, no, actually, this, and this. Okay, cool. So how does that play out in present day? All right. So all the while, I don't want to misspeak. I just say that a lot of times I don't, and I won't bring up any of the political ideas in here because one, a lot of them are incendiary, but I will look for the truth. Okay. Again, I will look for the truth. And what I found again is that a lot of people aren't telling the truth. So what am I supposed to do with that? Why would I talk about that? Like, what is it? It's interesting where it's just like, one side, let me put it this way. We're in the middle of another election cycle, and the number one thing going around is just like, well, and we know this, and somehow we accept it. It's usually the politician with the most money that invests the most money wins. That's it. Doesn't matter what their ideas are. It doesn't matter whether they believe in God or not. It doesn't matter if they they think what we're doing and how we're lining up and the economy is this, that, and the third. No. The one who wins is the one who has the most economic standing backing them. The most big time players with the most money investing in their campaign. That's what it comes down to. That's what it always comes down to. So while we're discussing ideas, they're promoting fears. And when you think about it, the nature of politics is also to kind of, and maybe this is a little bit strong, and I'm open to being, wrong about this one, but the nature of politics is to deceive, right? Like, I forgot what famous president said it. It doesn't really matter. What he said actually matters the most. Right? It's just like, in order to really win, you have to get into the hearts of the people. And maybe it was a political commentator or something like that. And I'm probably paraphrasing that as well. But it's almost all emotionally driven without any real sound thinking. So when you get a person who's discussing policy like I do, I look at the policy of all this stuff. Like, what are they saying policy-wise? How do they actually plan to govern? Not, oh, I'm voting because I'm afraid that this other person is going to do this or that person is going to do that. Like, there's too much fear. There's too much anger. There's too much hatred. There's too much of all that stuff that's already present in regular non-election cycle life for it to be turned up to the scale of 20 just because somebody's trying to get you to vote for them. And that's politics. That's why I don't have it on a podcast. My job is to build you all up. Whether that's physically, again, we can go over the arenas a gazillion times, but that's my job. My job is to build you up. The job of politics is not that. It's not that, and then I always go back to Saul. The children of Israel wanted Saul because he was pretty. They wanted Saul to lead them. God didn't want to put anybody in place. Like, no, we want a king. We want to be like other nations. We want Saul. He looks good. What? And thus begins our downfall. So it's just like, why? Like our king was right there. He was God he was right there, and he was like, we want Saul. Like I can't. So yeah, nah, I'm good on the politics. So I typically don't like politicians in general, right? So I'm not for this one and against this one, but I will call a spade a spade. If they're saying a bunch of junk, they're saying a bunch of junk. If they're actively participating in taking advantage of a people, they're actively participating in taking advantage of a people. It is what it is, though. But that's the main reason why I just will not dig into the political spectrum here on this podcast. But please note, though, even judging by the random topics that I've already had on here, we still do talk about the stuff that goes on. It's just not not through the political lens, right? I don't care about polls. I don't care about ratings. I mean, a lot of what happens, by way of bills and things like that, I actually study. I study and look into. I try and see if people are absolute liars or not. I mean, look, they all lie. They all lie. They all lie, and they're actively lying. So, now I'm not trying to convince you to make a choice one way or the other, or to sit out or do whatever. I'm not trying to convince you to do anything other than what you're already doing. I'm just explaining to you why I'm not going to go as deep into those topics as I would, other goings on and things that are going on around in the world, right? So I just wanted to drop that off. Nothing major. I know this episode is already running pretty long, so I'm a kind of just jump out there, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right. So if you like this segment, here's another one for you. Click over here, and if you want the entire podcast, go this way. Click on that one right there. And once again, I appreciate you. All right, you take it easy.